Joining us today is Caryn Cridland, Workplace Mediation Specialist, Mindful Mediation Lecturer at the University of Technology, Sydney, who will be speaking at IIR's Fair Work Summit 2011, which takes place on the 16th to 17th of May in Sydney. Hello Caryn, thanks for joining us today.
Hello James.
First of all, can you briefly explain the real advantages of using mediation in today's workplace?
Well, for me, James, the three key benefits of using mediation in today's workplace are that it saves time, money, and working relationships. And I'm going to go through each of those in turn. So first of all, time is saved through allowing employees to get back to work rather than spending time trying to deal with the issues or even avoiding the people involved. Avoiding colleagues can actually lead to delays in business processes and in internal and external communication. The time of HR managers and other managers is also saved when conflict is resolved quickly. So once conflict is resolved, people can get on with what they are employed to do. Now, if I just move on to money, money is related to time. People involved in a conflict often spend a lot of energy thinking about the conflict, and this means that they often have less energy available to do their work. Conflict often leads to lowered levels of motivation, productivity, and performance, and even high performers are susceptible to these aspects of conflict, and eventually they start to show signs of strain as a result of stress and decreased ability to concentrate. When people are involved in the conflict, our senior managers or even higher up, the financial cost of conflict can be very high. So again, the more time managers and HR spend on the conflict, the less time they have to spend on other activities. And so again, money is saved when conflict is resolved quickly. And now I'll move on to relationships. The effect of of conflict on relationships is obvious, although difficult to quantify. Often people involved in conflict not only shut down to the people involved in the conflict, but other people as well around them, such as other team members or even to clients. And as a result, relationships in teams deteriorate. And other effects such as within team communication can deteriorate as well. So some examples include failing to let someone know about changes to work practices or changes with key client accounts. And often this leads to doubling up on work. Conflict can also lead to reduced proactivity and creativity, which are also indicators of highly functional teams.
Can you outline a few common causes of workplace issues and disputes and explain some of their hidden costs?
Yeah, well, James, the most common causes of workplace issues and disputes are communication, and then what I refer to as style. And when I say style, I mean all sorts of aspects of a person's style. It could be their communication style, their personality, their working or leadership style. And when these sorts of styles are incompatible between people in a workplace, sometimes conflict can result, and this can affect people's relationships at work. Another common cause of workplace issues and disputes is the actual work people do and whether they can meet these requirements. On occasions, mental health issues can also sometimes lead to conflict. Now, regardless of the cause of the conflict, most conflict actually has the same impact in the organisation usually. As I've said before, it impacts in the organisation in terms of time, money, and in workplace relationships. And it is actually quite difficult to estimate the actual cost of conflict in terms of all of these aspects. However, we can give an estimate based on working out how much a person spends of their time on conflict each year. So, for instance, a number of international studies have concluded that managers spend between 20 and 30% of their time dealing with conflict in the workplace. So if we work that out, for a manager whose salary is approximately $100,000, an organisation may actually be spending about $20,000 to $30,000 on conflict each year just for that manager. So as you can imagine, things begin to get expensive for large companies with 100 managers on staff, and we haven't even factored in HR costs or staff costs. Other hidden costs include loss of valued staff. So it's estimated that it can actually cost an organisation about 1.5 times the employee's salary to select, recruit and train a new employee. as well as factoring in lost productivity. It's also estimated that when employees are more senior, that these costs can even go up even further than 1.5 times.
And what's the key to resolving such issues, and can this always be done in-house?
Well, James, the real key to resolving issues is to act as quickly as possible. Usually the quicker something is done about the conflict, the easier it is to resolve. I often think of a ship out on the horizon. It's much easier to deal with preparations for the docking of a ship when it's a speck on the horizon, rather than when it is landed full speed in port and smashes into the dock. And sometimes stepping into a mediation actually feels just like that. So, moving on to the second part of the question, when actually making a decision whether to call in mediators or resolve the issues, I would recommend doing the following things. As I've said, do something as soon as possible, and secondly, work out whether you have the resources to deal with the issues. And in order to do that, I would ask yourself a few questions. The first is, do the issues have the potential to lead to litigation or claims being made against the organisation? And then secondly, is the in-house person that is assigned to dealing with the conflict able to remain neutral at all times? And this includes between the parties as well as between the party and parties and the business needs. Often people are more prepared to be open and honest with external mediators than with in-house people for fear of repercussions, such as job loss or being targeted in the future. So this is something definitely to consider when trying to resolve issues in-house, because knowing the secrets or underlying causes of conflict can often be the key to successful resolution. And this is really the benefit of getting in an external mediator.
And what is the role of that mediator? How long does it typically take, and how many people can be involved in the mediation process?
Well, the main role of the mediator is to facilitate effective communication between the people involved in a conflict. And as I've previously said, communication is one of the main causes of conflict and contributes to all conflicts in some way. So the mediator's role is to listen, interpret what the person is saying, and then determine how the other person is hearing the information. If the mediator thinks the other person is hearing the communication differently to what is intended, then the mediator's role is to reword, or what mediators call reframe what has been said. This ensures that the intention of the communication is received. In terms of how long a mediation can take, it can take anywhere from a few hours to a few days, depending on how long the conflict has been going on for, and depending on how the people involved, how long they like to go through the process. Some people are obviously a lot quicker than others. Most mediations, however, do conclude within one day. And then in terms of how many people are involved in a mediation process, often 2 to 4 people are involved. However, sometimes more, depending on whether other support people are involved, such as lawyers or union representatives or interpreters, and sometimes even managers or HR people decide to be present during mediation. Whole teams can actually also be involved in a mediation process, but this is usually referred to as a facilitation, and the process is slightly different.
What are the dispute resolution processes available to resolve workplace conflict?
Well, as I've just mentioned, facilitation can be used for larger groups. Then there's also conflict coaching, which can be used for individuals instead of or alongside mediation to gain insight into the conflict and to help people with perspective taking and also developing skills and strategies for dealing with the conflict. Separate mediations can also be used. These are called shuttle mediations, and this is where people are in different rooms and the mediator goes between the rooms. This type of mediation is rarely used and only in where people refuse to meet face-to-face or there is a threat to safety. There's also another process which is not strictly a dispute resolution process but has the same effect in some cases, and that's a team assessment. And this is where an interviewer goes in and carries out interviews on team members looking for themes about what the team says about team functioning and effectiveness, and then a report is written with recommendations on how to resolve the issues. This is a really great alternative to a formal investigation, and as I said, sometimes this process is enough to resolve team issues without the need for any other further resolution processes.
You're speaking at IIR's Fair Work Summit 2011, which takes place on the 16th to 17th of May in Sydney. What will be the focus of your presentation, Caryn?
Well, James, the focus of my presentation will be on providing case study after case study of real conflicts that have resulted in happy endings as a direct result of mediation. I've witnessed many successful outcomes that have led to happier and more productive workers, more cohesive and effective teams, less stressed managers and relieved HR managers. So I want to share these insights with others.
Caryn Cridland, many thanks for your time today.
Thank you very much, James.